Holy shit, Orphan Black just got so much more awesome than it already was. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is my review for Orphan Black Season 2, Episode 9, Things Which Have Never Yet Been Done. And oh my god, this episode, just as I said, wow. This show is going to get awesome. I definitely feel like the finale is going to be really, really awesome. It's actually going to be, it could be better than last year's finale, which last year's finale was awesome too, but I feel like this one could be even more awesome. I feel like it's going to be, and I'm really looking forward to the finale. So, let's just get this episode, because I really, really enjoyed it overall. I thought it was a very strong episode. I thought it was by far the best episode of the season. By far. I mean, just wow. So much happened in tonight's episode. So much that I loved in tonight's episode. And, let's just get to it, because I loved it. So, right in the beginning, we can see that it's clearly all an act, but Rachel is pretending to be nice, or at least understanding that Cosima will probably die. We know that it's all an act, though, because Rachel just, why would she be nice all of a sudden? The growths, unfortunately, have spread from her uterus and lungs to her esophagus and kidneys. As you remember, Cosima passed out last week. We thought she died, but it turns out she didn't die. It has to be, but the only way that she can, they can help her is if she's injected with more of Kira's stem cells. So she sits down with Delphine, and she puts her on her, and she looks like, and she pretends that she's concerned. Rachel really doesn't give a shit about any of this. Rachel just is trying to stir up trouble. And as they talk about Cosima's options for treatment, really the only thing that can work, at least, until Duncan can find a cure, is convincing Sara that they need Kira's bone marrow. They know that, Sara is very protective of Kira, and they know that Sara really doesn't want to, so they have to find a way to get Sara to approve. So Delphine correctly assumes Sara will say, no way, which is true. Sara is so close with Kira, she cares so much about her daughter's safety, that if anything bad happened to her, then, Sara would be pissed at Delphine, and, Delphine would then be a target for her, so obviously she has to approach this in some good way, so... as Rachel points out, though, Leekie is dead and there's no need for any more secret plans. And then she says, things are different now, she tells Delphine. We could take this program in an entirely new direction, and because Rachel is just very, very manipulative. It's honestly brilliant how manipulative she is, because she tops it all off by appointing Delphine, in turn, director of Dyad, when really she doesn't give a shit about this. She just is blackmailing Delphine into her plan, which is really awesome. So, nearly emboldened by this promotion, Delphine then goes to see Mrs. S. Delphine goes to Mrs. S.'s house to meet with Sara, who has Mrs. S. and a menacing henchman, Benjamin, standing by. Now, Delphine pleads with Sara the only way to help Cosima get over the deadly clone respiratory disease is if she gets some of Kira's bone marrow to reboot her immune system. Now, Sara's obviously not happy about this. She does not want, this to happen, obviously, which, as I said, I was predicting that. But she doesn't want Kira to die either, because obviously, she doesn't want Cosima to die either, because she does care about Cosima. She cares about all the clones, and the clones are basically her family, so she doesn't want Cosima to die. And Mrs. S offers that she knows a pediatric surgeon who could perform the procedure and make sure that Kira doesn't get anywhere close to Dyad. So Sara reluctantly approaches Kira, and asks if she would be okay with this plan. And Kira isn't really a fan of giant needles, but she wants to save Cosima, and she says yes. So, Kira agrees to it, basically because Kira really doesn't have a choice at this point. They're making it seem like that's the only way to do it. And we then see a very touching scene, very, very touching. For the rest of the episode, most of Sara's plot takes place in this hospital bed. It's very, very touching. Sara, Felix, and Mrs. S are surrounding Kira on a hospital bed, and the doctor starts the bone marrow procedure. And Sara bursts into tears at the sight of it. She literally is thinking aloud, what kind of mother am I? She's crying, and you can see that she is pretty upset about this, definitely. She's pretty upset because, the whole thing is here that she is really, we don't know if Kira's gonna die or not. I was pretty sure Kira was gonna die this episode, because the way they were setting that scene up made me think she was gonna die. So yeah, I was really thinking that. So, Ethan is working with Cosima and Scott to find the cure. And it sheds a little more light on why the clones are having so many elements. And his wife, Susan, came up with the idea to make the clones sterile by preventing their ovarian follicles from maturing. Now, Cosima, who unfortunately we find out needs an oxygen tank to help her breathe, which is kind of sad. She gently asks why they closed that path instead of just tweaking the hormones. Ethan points out that it was the least invasive solution, and unfortunately they didn't foresee the deadly consequences, but now he's trying to help correct the mistakes, and he makes sure to mention that each synthetic sequence has its own key, as he has no intention of letting Dyad keep the codes and keep perpetuating the clone experiment. We then see Rachel and her boss Marion enter the room, and they exchange, and basically they discuss Leekie's death and his heart attack in the company jet, and Rachel deadpans. Then they have one of those, they have a very vague exchange, where Marion notes that Rachel has learned a lot about her background lately, and wants to make sure she's on track with some mysterious plan. And Rachel says, I know what your goals are, I've only just taken charge. So Marion regards her coldly and then says, Sara Manning intrigues me, doesn't she? Doesn't she you? And Rachel's face freezes, and she says, biologically, yes, even though her relationship with Sara is more of a, her relationship with Sara is like rage, hate. She hates Sara. Marion then reminds her that it's not just biologically that has gone Sara this far. She says, Marion says, you were bred, but Sara's a product of chance. Rachel assures Marion that Sara is in hand. So the plan has something to do with the clone infertility, and the fact that Sara's the only one who can conceive a child and that Rachel's really upset by this, it sure seems that way. Because then Rachel takes a drink, and she's in a giant room filled with screens where she proceeds to torture herself by watching home movies of her happy childhood, and she starts to cry and whisper, stupid, 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 over and over. And it seems like, they're trying to get us to care about Sara, but the problem is, we can't care. They're trying to get us to care about Rachel. And we can't care about Rachel, because Rachel is the enemy. Rachel is just the enemy, and she's evil. She's so evil. So, she then freezes the picture wall with a photo of Kira and Sara smiling together. She then places a phone call to the doctor where we only hear her side of the conversation. She says, I need your expertise. We don't know what happens next. It just, wow, really awesome there. That was really, really just wow. Because Delphine then returns to report on Kira's bone marrow procedure. She catches a glimpse of Rachel's computer that has a picture of Mrs. S's henchman, Benjamin, and it says the word confidential scrawled across it. So the question is he a double agent? Now, Delphine assumes that he's a double agent, and given that he's in charge of guarding Kira, she then panics and heads back to the hospital, calls Sara, telling her to come downstairs immediately because she has information that she can't deliver over the phone. Sara then storms out of the car, back into the hospital, goes to gather Kira to get her out. And Felix asks what's going on, then notices he's getting a call from Sara. And it turns out it's actually not Sara. It is Rachel in disguise. The Benjamin thing was all a ruse to distract Delphine, and the real Sara, and the real Sara. Rachel plunges a needle into Felix's neck and grabs the sleeping Kira. So, just, wow, that was so surprising. I did not expect that at all. So, by the time everyone figures out what happened, Kira and Rachel are long gone. Kira wakes up in a very pink bedroom. She's like, where's Mrs. S? Where's Sara? Just innocently asks, because she doesn't know where she is. And Rachel is waiting for her. Kira asks what's going on, and Rachel, says, oh yeah, she says, she can't see her mom, and she tells her this is her new home. You may even grow to like it here, just as I did. Wow. It's gonna get really interesting now, because now we have Rachel just kidnap Kira again, which is gonna be really awesome to see next week, how Sarah's gonna react to this. Plus, Delphine is gonna find out that, Rachel essentially, blackmailed her into making this plan, but honestly, it's a genius plan. Rachel's a genius. As much as we hate Rachel, she's a genius, because it worked, and I was very surprised how good it worked, but overall, I love the main plot. I thought it was very, very strong. I can't wait for the next episode because of it. Let's go to Helena. Helena, by far, just, wow, she had some amazing stuff in this episode. Really, she did. So, basically with Helena, we have not seen Helena for the past 2 episodes, and we didn't really know where Helena went. Now, it turns out that she's still at that breeding farm. She has no idea when they started, what they started, when they bribed Helena to come back, saying that they have her babies. It turns out, though, all we know is that they told her they have her babies. Now, it turns out that Henrik drugged Helena, stole her babies, and then made them whole. Basically, he combined them with his sperm, and now he's injecting them into Helena for his own IVF experiment. And Helena doesn't seem to mind, because as she said before, she really does want children, and will do anything to get children. You really do care for Helena, and as I said, I really like they're getting us to care for her this season. But it turns out Helena's not the only one pregnant on Henrik's farm. In addition to breeding horses and cows, he's also breeding humans. because it's a nursery we see a nursery with about 20 kids running around, and Henrik tells her one day this room could be full of her children, and she says, "You're part of our family now." Alexis tells Helena, which is actually really creepy, because Alexis then oversteps when she roughs up a little girl who is late to nap time, and Helena reminds her how scary she can be, and she says, "You touch her again, I will gut you like a fish," and it's just like, you don't mess with Helena, you just don't. And, then we see what she does, and then when she finds out Henrik's plan, she goes apeshit on Henrik, because he's also impregnated his daughter, Gracie, which is really messed up. Just really, really messed up. I mean, it's awesome, it's creepy, but it's really messed up. Like, seriously, Henrik is probably the most messed up character on this show. And, basically, the midwife lends Gracie to bed next to Helena's in the barn, telling her, now that you're both in a family way, you can keep each other company. And Helena seems cool with this at first. She seems like, okay, fine, I'll get to know Gracie, because she doesn't have a problem with Gracie. And she says, you might as well eat, you will be first soon anyway. And Gracie's on the verge of tears. She's very upset, and she furiously tells Helena that she's technically pregnant with Helena's babies. And she says, that's your genes, Helena. Haven't you been listening to anything my father said? And Helena then says, not really. And now that Helena knows the truth, she's out of there. She tries to sneak out in the middle of the night, and Gracie joins her because she wants to get the two of them out of there because, one, she's thinking, okay, this family's messed up. Two, she's just thinking, why, what is, this guy is crazy. You know, he should not be leaving here, and he's basically making us his slaves. So, she goes apeshit on Henrik. Henrik is waiting for them with a shotgun, smacks Helena across the face, grabs Gracie, throwing her into a cage. And then we meet Mark, who is Henrik's henchman and Gracie's love interest. And he's watching the whole thing happen and has finally had enough. He says, no, I'm done. You had to put your own children inside her, and he's horrified. And Henrik tells him that Helena is a miracle. She defies the laws of science, Mark. He says, it's a sign I cannot ignore. And, it's really awesome here, because Helena has sneaked up behind him, chokes him until he's unconscious, and while Mark helps Gracie out of the cage, they run away. So, Gracie and Mark are safe, and that really is props to Helena, because they're now safe because of her. So, a little while later, Henrik wakes up in his own lab, and Helena has strapped him down, and his feet are in stirrups. And he tries to protest, he says, Helena, we saved you, I'm the father of your children. And Helena ignores this, and she's like, so what happens when you have babies? That's how she says it. And she proceeds to shove the IVF instrument up into Henrik, and she sets the entire farm on fire and runs away. Wow. That is why you don't mess with Helena. Like, seriously, that was awesome to watch, and it's going to be really awesome to see what happens now. I mean, she tortured him, and he really does deserve it, because Henrik is a crazy bastard. Just crazy. So yeah, Helena's plot was awesome as well. Really looking forward to seeing where it's going to go. I think now it's going to show that Helena's not taking any more shit from anyone. I think that's really what it's going to show, and that's really going to become apparent next week when we get Sarah's plot. I think she's probably going to help out Sara. So then we go, then the only other thing we have to talk about is Donnie and Allison. This was basically comic relief, even though there was some, some dramatic stuff in here. It was basically comic relief. Because now that everything's on the plate, now that she knows that Donnie killed Dr. Leekie, they have to transfer Leakie's body from Donnie's car into a freezer in their garage, which is basically really funny because Donnie doesn't want to. He has, like, rubber gloves on, he's freaking out, and she's like, oh, come on, Donnie. It's kind of funny because usually, the woman freaks out while the man's like, oh, come on. But it's Donnie who's freaking out, and I thought that was really funny, actually. They then determine that no one in Dyad seems to really care that Leakie's gone. But the question is of what to do. But the question is, of course, what to do with the body. They don't know what to do with it. Now, Donnie suggests throwing it in the lake, but Allison rejects the idea. She says, "Do we have a boat?" And she's adding that thanks to Dexter. She knows random scuba divers can find bodies in water all the time. So they jackhammer a hole into the garage floor where they can bury the body under many layers of dirt and cement. And that's already a bonding experience, and even more so when we then see Vic, Vic comes back to bother them once more. And Allison thought she disposed of him in rehab, and after learning he was secretly trying to investigate her for Worst Cop Ever, Angie, but he has returned, and Donnie finds him snooping. We don't know what to think of Vic right now. The big thing is, of course, that she revealed too much information to Vic, so we don't know if we can trust Vic right now, so it's very interesting. So Donnie finds him snooping outside, drags him into the garage at gunpoint, and this was awesome with Donnie. Like, I thought Donnie was going to kill Vic right then and there, because Donnie just became a badass in that scene. He became a badass. He really did. And he finds him snooping around, drags him into the garage at gunpoint, holding him over Leekie's open grave, and eventually Vic cracks and says Angie is waiting in a van outside. Donnie grabs a backbone, grabs Vic, and breaks into the van. He then threatens Angie, telling her that he knows that this is unofficial police business and that Art Bell got suspended for doing much less, so he'll report her for harassment if she ever comes near his family again. That was really awesome, because then he's just like, have a shitty day, and that was awesome, because it really shows that he's going to help Allison now, and Allison's going to be happy about that. So he then triumphantly leaves and helps Allison tidy up a crime scene. So basically, that was really awesome when he did. And Leekie is buried beneath their garage, and Allison says, "I've never been more attracted to you." And Allison, then they try to have sex on the freezer where Leekie's body was hidden. That was kind of creepy, but you know what? It's funny. I thought that was funny. So overall, that was the episode, and this was by far the best episode of the season. Everything was really interesting. Sara's plot was really interesting. Helena's plot was really interesting, and Allison's plot was really interesting. There's a lot of things to figure out now. What is going to happen now that Rachel took Kiara? Obviously, Rachel's going to find out about this. She's probably going to be pissed out of her mind about this. We're going to see how she reacts to that. Looking forward to seeing how she reacts to that. As far as Delphine, is Delphine going to find out that Rachel betrayed her? We pretty much know that because we saw a promo of that. I definitely think someone major is going to die. Do you think Felix is going to die? I hope not. I really hope Felix is going to be okay. All we know is that Rachel did something bad to him. As far as Helena goes, do you think Helena is going to end up saving them? I think what they're trying to show is that Helena is going to save them. I don't really know where she's going next, but we'll have to see. As far as Allison goes, what's going to happen there with Allison and Donnie? I think they're pretty much okay now, but we'll have to see what happens with them. What's going to happen with Leekie's body? What are they going to do with Leekie's body? We'll have to see. But overall, by far the best episode of the season. Really, really loved it. I was really, really into this episode. Every storyline was really, really interesting. And I'm really looking forward to next week's finale, which is going to be really, really awesome. And I'm really looking forward to it. So that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for another classic movie review. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.